Hello, everyone, and welcome to Tell Talks with Childcare Aware of Minnesota and our special guest presenter from our office, Nikki Graf. Tell Talks, or Topics for Early Learning Leaders, are monthly webinars for early childhood program leaders to facilitate solutions-focused discussions for your questions about the early childhood field in Minnesota. These one-hour webinars do not meet the standards for a formal professional development training event, and participants will not receive a certificate of completion. Tell Talks are designed as a community building opportunity for leaders to engage and share ideas surrounding a specific content area. The Tell Talks team consists of Nikki Lapowski, Quality Improvement Coordinator, and myself, Christy Berg, Workforce Advising Coordinator. We work with Corey Woosley and Katie Hoffman at Childcare Aware of Minnesota to bring you Tell Talks. A couple of our recent topics have included online learning experiences with Eager to Learn and creating inclusive environments for children with autism to play, learn, and grow. Today, we're joined by Nikki Graf from Childcare Aware of Minnesota, who will share information about the Care Fellowship and advocacy. And we are also joined by Vicki Filto, who participated in cohort number 15 of the Care Fellowship. And you can visit the program leaders page of our website if you'd like to view any of the previously recorded Tell Talks. After our presentation today, you will receive an email from me with the PowerPoint slides and any other resources shared. Childcare Aware of Minnesota supports the professional growth of early childhood educators with professional development opportunities, Eager to Learn online training, grants, parent aware, and scholarships. We are a resource and referral network for early childhood education in Minnesota. We assist families in finding a quality childcare program and keep the community informed on the importance of quality early care and education. Childcare Information Services is a department within our organization that specializes in statewide information sharing and assisting families who are looking for childcare. They send a welcome packet to new programs and survey programs every 3 years on business policies and tuition rates. The rates are confidential and can influence CCAP reimbursement. CCIS receives calls from program leaders across Minnesota with general business questions and can route you to the appropriate person to contact. Childcare Aware of Minnesota partners with Center for Inclusive Childcare, which provides free relationship-based professional development, including support, modeling, and resources for childcare programs throughout Minnesota. A coach will spend time with your program, providing support focusing on the successful inclusion of children with challenging behaviors or special needs, implementing health and safety best practices, and supporting the unique needs of infants and toddlers in your care. Achieve, the Minnesota Center for Professional Development, supports individual, trainer, and RBPD membership applicants and approves courses and training events. The Achieve website has several resources to share, including a job board, policy info, the Minnesota Career Lattice, and a virtual career guide. The Tell Talks team partners with several organizations to offer coordinated resources surrounding early care and education needs. As always, participants of Tell Talks are encouraged to ask questions and make contributions throughout the presentation. We invite you to engage in dialogue with our presenter. We love when Tell Talks are interactive, so if you feel comfortable to turn your cameras on, please do that. You can unmute to share your ideas or questions or put them into the chat box at any point. And we are recording the Tell Talk today, so we'll send a link to the recording in the follow-up email along with the PowerPoint. And now I'm excited to turn it over to Nikki Graf. We're so glad you could join us today to talk about the Care Fellowship. Welcome.
Thank you, Christy, and thank you for everyone for being here. I see some faces that I know and some faces that I don't know, which is super exciting because I love to meet people I don't know, and I love the people I do know. So thank you for all being here. I know it's a busy Thursday afternoon, so hopefully you had some lunch by now, and if not, feel free to eat while we're doing this. I'm going to share my screen really quick, and I have a little bit of a PowerPoint for you. Let me just get it over here. And If you can just give me a thumbs up and let me know that you can see this. All right, I see thumbs up. Awesome. So I'm here to talk about Care Fellowship, which is also known as the Child Care Advocates Ready to Emerge Fellowship. And I'm Nikki Graf. We're going to talk about just the Care Fellowship in general. And then we have a fellow with us, as Christy said, Vicky's here. She's currently a Care Fellow, so she hasn't graduated yet. So she can share you the experience in real time of what it feels like. And if you have questions for her, I encourage you to ask them. And then after that, just a really brief slide on some things that are currently happening in Minnesota. And I like to say that the conversation is just getting started today. So if you have more questions about advocacy in our state or our field, we can always be friends and talk about it. But first, I wanted to introduce myself. Since I tend to be correlated with Care Fellowship often, my email is attached to it. So if you see my name, I'm probably your go-to person to ask questions. So who am I would be helpful to know. I started my journey in early childhood as a toddler teacher in a few centers. And while I was working in that, I just always had this feeling of like wanting to do more, wanting to fight for something, want to stand up for something, want to learn more, want to just do something. And I had no idea what that meant, but I just wanted to do more. And then I found the application for Care Fellowship and I was like, yeah, advocacy. I guess that's more. And I applied and showed up and that was my thing. I first felt like, why am I here? What am I doing? But down the road, eventually I felt like this is my jam. This is everything I want to wake up every morning and do. And it just became a complete advocacy nerd. So I joined Care Fellowship in cohort 11, so 4 years ago. And like I said, from there, I fell in love with it. I went to grad school to get my master's degree in advocacy and political leadership because I could not get enough. And then from there, in the photo, you can see I'm testifying at the Capitol with my daughter, Logan. My family, or I guess me and my very willing wife, introduced a bill in the 2018 legislature that directly impacted our family because when our first daughter was born, I had to adopt her. My wife was considered her legal parent and I was not. And so all families like ours have to adopt our own children only because our laws are outdated. So from Care Fellowship and grad school, I took all that information. I was pregnant. I had a toddler on my hip. I was working full time and in grad school and tried to pass a bill all at the same time. I don't recommend doing it that way, but that's what I did. And at the end of it, our bill didn't pass, but I got to learn so much and take so much information from the Care Fellowship with me. And then from there, I was promoted to the Equity and Advocacy Coordinator. So full circle moment, I now run Care Fellowship. The person who showed up and was like, why am I here? Now shows up and tries to tell people why they're there. So that's who I am. And that's the experience that I have from Care Fellowship. But this is really what Care Fellowship is. So it is a fellowship that comes together with multiple people from across the state, from different areas of the field, from all walks of life. The group is really diverse in a lot of different ways of age, experience in early childhood, what your role is, what your education background is. We have some people who are brand new teachers to the field. We have some people who have 20 years of experience. We have trainers. We have Vicky's trainer. We have educators, directors, a lot of different kinds of people come together to learn about advocacy and public policy. So that's the really exciting thing is it's a network within itself that you're growing and learning from. And then our cohort teaches everyone, what is advocacy? What does that mean for you? And it's not just going to the Capitol or emailing your legislator. It can be different things. And then talking about public policy specifically. So if you've been following anything at all legislative wise this year, we had a lot to talk about. I think like $9 billion specifically to talk about in Minnesota. So we had a lot of real-time situations as advocates that we got to talk about. And then the opportunities that we have obviously are connecting with each other, learning about specific policy topics statewide and nationally, building the skills, learning how to tell your story, things like that is kind of what's incorporated into the curriculum. Sorry, I have two screens and I keep hiding one of them. So these are the topics that are covered. We this is just general. There's lots of things that we learn, but mostly we learn about the legislative process. So how does a bill work? We learn about connecting with legislators and people who are in different various levels of government. So we had school board last week come talk to us, or we had a mayor come talk to us. We have community organizers coming next week. So just all elements of advocacy and what it looks like. We just learned about all of them. And then lastly, this is a new thing that we added to learning, but self-care and advocacy is a huge thing as well. Like, you cannot be a leader if you're burnt out and exhausted. So we walked through that this year for the first time and really intentionally talked about what is self-care through advocacy. The Care Fellowship is run by a group of collaborators. It has historically always been run by a group of collaborators. Sometimes it changes on who it is, but currently it's Child Care Aware of Minnesota. So I and my executive director represent our organization. Then we have NCCA. If you know who Claire Sanford is, maybe you got sent here from her. She usually sends people this way. She represents them. We have Minacia Mensaka. So if you know Karen DeVos, she is their representative. And then Think Small, if you know who Marie Huey is. So those are the four that run it right now. And they're a power team. They have so much knowledge and so much experience. I frequently go to Ann McCulley all the time and be like, tell me how this works, because I don't understand. And they just are so easy and approachable and are really great resources. So that alone, I think, is super valuable. The goals of the fellowship are really, really, honestly, to give you a deeper understanding of public policy, how it works, how it moves through the system, how our field depends on it, and how we can manipulate change that way. And then an increase of our understanding of the system in general. So what's the history of childcare? What's the history of the funding streams that we used to have and that we have now? What is it going to look like moving forward? And then personal and professional growth. I think if I could say the biggest thing I took away from Care Fellowship as a fellow was how personally I changed, and understanding the like individual power that I had as a person who could change things was the biggest lesson. And then professionally, obviously, there's so many things, but I think personally is where the change really happens. You make new friendships, new relationships, network. I think we've had, oh my gosh, I don't even know how many guests this time around virtually through a pandemic. I think over 10 people have come and shared their expertise, and now fellows have connections with them, with which maybe you haven't before. I know, I don't think I have any connections with a county commissioner, but now I do. So that happened here. And then it's an ongoing connection to the group of alumni that do exist. So there's over 300 alumni and soon to be more after this year. So it's a massive group of people if you really think about it. For such a small niche kind of work, advocacy is something that some people fall into. So there's a big network outside of that as well. A lot of people ask, like, who is the Care Fellowship? Like, who would be required or qualified to do this? And I say everybody. Everyone is welcome to come. Anyone who's interested in advocacy or public policy, for sure. There is a focus on early childhood and school-age professionals, so educators, directors, Head Start, ECFE, home visitors, anyone that falls into that category are more than welcome to come, but you don't have to be an expert in advocacy or public policy. And we've had a lot of different types of people as well. We had someone who was she worked at a children's bookstore, and that falls into the category. There was someone who was like a dietitian or a nutritionist for children. So it's like anyone who has a story to tell is welcome to come. And this is really exciting to see that there are some alumni now after Care Fellow who switch careers or have new positions. So like I said, we have a county commissioner who's an alumni. We have coalition leaders, children book authors, leaders in advocacy and public policy, lead teachers, directors, administrators, chairs of family child care associations, and bill authors. So they have changed the world in many, many ways. And I see a couple people have come in, so welcome. I know you're catching me after a few slides. There's a recording of this, so you could see the first portion. So the commitment of a fellow is we meet once a month for 9 months. I think we started in October this year and we'll end in June. Maybe the math is off. We started September. But you just meet once a month for an entire day and we go over all of these various topics for that amount of time. And afterwards, we have 2 additional hours through Eager to Learn. So an online training that you take at your own pace. This is a new thing because I'll be very honest, advocacy content is sometimes really dry. Like you don't want to hear about how a committee works for 8 hours straight. So we put it into an ETL module that you can take at your own pace and really walk through it and process and think more and kind of navigate it on your own at your own time. And then we come back as a group and talk more about it. So that's an exciting thing that happened this year. And then lastly, at the end of the fellowship, everyone graduates and presents a policy project, which Vicki will talk more about her project here, but I asked her as part of her project to come and be with us. So policy projects are the last thing. There was something else I wanted to mention in terms of commitment, and maybe I have a slide, so we might get there, but something new this year was that we actually have funding for Care Fellowship. We haven't had that before. And so we are able to make it more accessible. So people can have stipends if they need to travel from long distances. I think we have someone from Red Lake, Minnesota. So she drives a very long way to get to the Twin Cities. So we have support to get her here. There's lunches included when you meet with us, things like that. So we really try to make it accessible for everybody too, which is something that we didn't always have. So getting to the policy project, it is essentially, Vicki, how do I describe this? A very open-ended, ungraded, what you want to make it project. And I say that because there are so many ways that you can do this project. So we really left it open for you to come as your full self and say like, this is what I'm passionate about. This is what I want to share. And this is what I want to work on. And sometimes halfway through the cohort, your project will drastically change. So we've really left it open for anyone to just come and bring something that you contribute to the field. And it's really based on what you're interested in. So here's some examples that policy projects have been in the past. Bring families and legislators together at your childcare program. Host a family event that encourages advocacy. Share lessons that you've learned from each month with your friends or family on social media or any kind of way. Testifying at a committee hearing, encouraging your family members to vote, and attending a public policy forum. Vicki will share her project with us. I'm one of those people who are like halfway at change. So I did a very unsuccessful book club. So we were supposed to read the Power to the Profession book and no one read it, which is fine. But we split some cheese bread instead and shared our stories with each other. And that's where I learned like, that's what advocacy is. That's where we come together and share who we really are and what we're passionate about. And it clicked for me in that moment. So failed policy project gave me a life lesson. That's what I presented at the end. Oh, and I forgot this part, but basically these are the components that we try to get you to do. So think about something that's new and out of your comfort zone, something that's individual and collective for you to learn and us to learn from you, for you to practice what you're learning throughout the entire cohort and then to contribute to the field later. So another thing is policy projects sometimes never end. They continue past the fellowship and I've seen that. And I think that's like, this might be just the starting ground or the planting ground for the seed that you have. So here we are now to lovely Vicki. I'm going to stop sharing my screen so you can see her. And I have a couple questions that I had asked her to answer for us. So Vicki, if you want to go ahead and unmute and just introduce yourself first.
Sure. So anyway, I'm Vicki Feltow. I'm one of your trainers. Hi, Karen. Hello, new people. Happy to meet you today. So I've been in the field for quite some time. I've worked in family child care. I've worked at a center, been a director, been a parent aware coach, inclusion coach, class coach. And I work with a CDA program. So right now I'm a learning coordinator for CDA. cohort through Think Small. So I've worn many different hats. And so I just really wanted to see what was out there, and the Care Fellowship kind of beckoned me. I was like, what's this about? So I applied and was really happy to be accepted, and I've really enjoyed the experience.
Thank you. All right. So my first question for you is, what were your thoughts about advocacy or the Care Fellowship before your cohort started?
So I've always known that advocacy is something that's really important. It's something that I've done to a degree, you know, in my personal life, like with my son. My son is autistic, and we had some issues with the school district. So I was kind of a mama bear, and you know, worked on advocating, you know, for his needs, for our family's needs. So I've had a little bit of experience with that. But nothing like official, like within the field of early childhood education. I've always known it's important. I've always known that the policies kind of affect our work. And I was lucky to know 2 people that have done the Care Fellowship before. So when they talked about it, they said that it was really an amazing experience, and they kind of advertised it, and I was like, oh, that is interesting. And so anyway, so I had a little bit of understanding of policy, a little bit of a background of the Care Fellowship, but I will tell you that my eyes have been opened.
Thank you. I think that leads into the next question of, what is your experience so far? And can you share a little bit of your policy project?
Sure. I have to say that my experience with the Care Fellowship it's been phenomenal. I can't express that enough. It's really been impactful personally and professionally. First of all, I mean, just the information that's shared is mind-boggling, really. So understanding the history of our field, how deep our roots go, things that affect, you know, decision making, and even thoughts about our field that I just wasn't aware of, has been really rich. So understanding more about how to talk with legislators, all those official avenues that you don't really think about. Yeah, it's just been a very rewarding experience. And then just being together, hearing all the different ideas and the perspectives, it just really has expanded my horizon. So it's just been a really great experience so far. Yes, let's see.
And then
What's
what's your policy project, Vicki?
My policy project, I would say I've probably ended up doing a couple. So one is this webinar. Yes, I've never presented, I don't think, on a webinar before, like in this format. I just recently did my first online training a couple weeks ago. So I'm learning Zoom. But anyway, my main policy project is putting together like a library of resources. I've always been kind of a resource hoarder. Like I've got these tubs of, you know, all different things that I think would be really helpful, you know, full of wisdom, full of tidbits. And I research a lot of things. I love to read. So that's kind of one of my passions, is bringing all that together for connection. So my policy project is I've interviewed several people, like in different roles. So I've interviewed some teachers, I've interviewed a coach, I've interviewed some directors and some other people in the field in different organizations, and there's still more to do. And I've asked them, I said, you know, where do you go to get your news? Where do you go? What kind of podcasts do you listen to? What articles do you read? What organizations do you know of that's in our field? that was one of my original reasons for joining the cohort, because it seems like our field has all these nooks and crannies, people doing different things. So I kind of wanted to be more aware. So what work groups are out there, task forces, it's fascinating to me, or like influential people that you follow. So I've just been compiling all that from the interviews. And then I look at my personal resources that I look at. So I'm making a template. So I guess it's a library, really, of sorts to support us. So I'm putting my resource hoarding to use that other people can hopefully benefit from. So the end result, I don't know. I have some long-term ideas. I was thinking about maybe writing a book, or, just about the journey. Maybe, growing as a new professional, some things to consider. I've thought about putting together a training. So I might do that. But in the interim, I've made a template, and I'd like for it to be published. So in some way, so like for our care fellowship, when we present, I'll print it out so other care fellows can see. And then maybe making it into like a website or like a wiki. That maybe people it can be an interactive website for all of us that people can add in resources to. So that's kind of my policy project. Obviously, it's not going to be wrapped up with a nice little bow by June. It's probably something I'm going to do for my entire career. So that's my policy project.
Thank you.
Thank you, Emily.
Yes, like she said, I don't think most projects will have bows at the end of the cohort, especially since we survived a pandemic. We did most of our cohort virtually, and I don't know how many times we met and someone was like, I got 20 COVID cases in our classroom. I had to be in the classroom. So it was very real. We had parents with babies on their hips in the middle of meetings. And we had one person who was just straight up in a classroom and just showed up how she could. So it's okay to be human, I think, in our care fellowship. So thank you, Vicki, for that. My next question is, what's the biggest lesson that you'll take away from this experience?
Knowledge is power. Just really understanding history, understanding yourself, understanding avenues can really help you find your voice. It can really help you find who you are, and it can help you express, whatever action you want to take more efficiently, more effectively. So the more that you know, the more you can be. So that's a really big lesson. And then also just do it. Just get out there. I think that's one of the most important lessons. It can make you uncomfortable, but just get out there, get yourself a mentor, try new experiences. I know when I first talked to my legislator, it was hilarious because I put all these different things together. Like, okay, here's my questions. Here's the information I'm going to share. I all wrote it up. And, I talked with them for 5 minutes, and we talked about things that I never even, considered. So I'm like, oh, okay. So we're going from behavior to the infrastructure of early childhood. Okay, well, all right. So it was new, and that can be exciting. And sure, I kind of stumbled a bit. I wasn't expecting that. So he was very gracious as I collected my thoughts. But yeah, so I think that's just such an important lesson is get out there. Absolutely.
Thank you. And you may have dipped into your answer for this one, maybe not, but what would you tell future fellows about Care Fellowship?
It's a phenomenal experience. If you're even thinking about applying, seriously, to really do it, it can be so transformative. It's really helped me not only in my professional life, but also in my personal. How do you navigate change? How do you, take care of yourself? How do you, just understand what thoughts and biases you might have? So it's just really transformative. And for future fellows, you matter. You matter. And we're all unique, and we all have a message to say, and we all have contributions. And I think you might be surprised by what you're already doing. So that was something that was really an important piece that came to me. So yeah, it's a great experience. And then you have this whole support network of these amazing humans that love children too, and that want to, you know, nurture our kids and our families. So it's a great journey.
Thank you, Vicki.
You're
We'll
welcome.
include her contact information after in the follow-up in case anybody wants to talk more to a current fellow. And then I apologize, there's yard work happening outside, so if it's super loud, maybe hopefully just for me. But let me get to my PowerPoint and finish the last couple slides for you. So the cohort that is currently happening is still happening until June, and then June 14th applications will open again for next cohort. I believe they close around like August something, and then we start it up again in September or October. So it's a pretty quick turnaround once you apply. You wait just a couple weeks, hopefully, for me to make a very beautiful spreadsheet and go through all applications. But we have come together as a group and make decisions on who gets in, and it's just really exciting. And I know that it's not a very fun portion of fellowship, but to see the amount of passion that comes through and the amount of curiosity and interest that people who apply for this is just so exciting. And the really devastating part of my job is like, we have a cap at 25. So when people don't always get to get in, I'm like, please apply again next year, because everyone should do this, and that's always the goal. So applications, like I said, open June 14th. We'll also have an info session around that time. It'll be really similar to this. So if you feel like you want to see my face again and maybe this PowerPoint, you're more than welcome to come. But you can always share it with other people too. And so June is kind of the time that we're going to move things forward. So that's everything for Care Fellowship specifically. Does anybody have any questions on the fellowship before I get into the other stuff?
Nikki, it's Christy. Will they find the application for the Care Fellowship? Maybe you said this. Is it on the Child Care Aware Minnesota website?
Yes, and I believe it's under the community tab, and it says Care Fellowship, so it'll take you right there, and that you should be able to just log in. There's also like frequently asked questions, the history of childcare, and a few more details that you can look up if you have more questions. But you can also email me too.
Sounds good.
Yeah. Anybody else have any questions? No? All right. Then I'm going to finish this off with a few things that are happening in Minnesota or that kind of started this year, which is really exciting. Advocacy has obviously been happening for a very long time, but in our state, I think, our state and our country, I think childcare is emerging as this issue that a lot of people are starting to advocate for. You know, people need to go back to their jobs and have their children to take care of, be cared for, and we want quality care. We want people to be paid. We have all these things that we want for our field, and I think there's an emerging leadership in early childhood that's starting to happen, and Minnesota is doing some things. So, like I said, there's a historical amount of funding for early childhood. Like I think I butchering the number, so it's like $9 billion for Minnesota in a surplus, and a lot of that has been asked to be dedicated to childcare and early childhood in a lot of different ways, and that's super exciting in the advocacy world, just because that's the first time that we've really gotten to invest in ourselves. A lot of money came before that too, during the pandemic, to keep doors open and programs functioning, but it wasn't enough, right? It was just to get us by, and we previously didn't have that. And so I'm so sorry. Sorry, guys. So previously we didn't have that, and now we're getting to this point where people are starting to talk more about investing in childcare, which is awesome. We have tons of early childhood coalitions. So Vicki, I think this is how our conversation started about her policy project, was like, there are so many and they all have very similar names. I don't know who is who. How do we get it right? But the exciting thing about that is because of that, there's so many ways to get involved. So if you've heard of, prenatal to 3, elders for infants, there's so many Start Early Funders Coalition, Kids Count on Us. There are like a bunch of ways that you can get involved in advocacy, and hopefully through Care Fellowship is where you can kind of get in there and meet those people. I apologize. My family is home and my dogs are losing it. The other thing that's exciting is advocacy is coming in different shapes, as in people. So providers are emerging, parents are emerging, communities. A lot of people are coming together and saying childcare is incredibly important. Early childhood is incredibly important. I'm here as an advocate for that. And a lot of people are doing a lot of really unique ways of standing up for that. So it's really awesome to see how this is on the forefront of a lot of people's minds. This is not new, but a super helpful tool if you're new to advocacy. So our executive director at Childcare Aware, Ann McCulley, one of the collaborators, does a bill tracker and a legislative update every year, which I'm not sure if any of you have committed any time to trying to follow a bill, but that is exhausting and hard. She does it for all of us, and she tracks it and puts it on our website. So that's also on the Childcare Aware of Minnesota website. And I think each week is a legislative update, and she has a really awesome spreadsheet that follows every bill that impacts childcare, early childhood. So I recommend going to that and checking it out. And then another exciting thing we created this year was an advocacy toolkit. So as issues emerge in the legislature, a lot of times legislators aren't 100% experts on what we are 100% experts on. So they'll come up with a bill, they'll sign on as an author for something, but may not know everything they need to know about one issue. And so what we created this year were guides of kind of background information on certain things. So we have a guide on how to talk about ratios and how they're important, and how that children need qualified teachers in the classroom, or just overloading teachers is a stressful thing to do. We have one on talking about higher ed and how we need to fund our early childhood higher ed programs. I think the other one is there's someone like the power to the profession. So really what they are is talking points or guides for if you're having a conversation with legislators or advocates, you're able to say, this is what's currently happening. So that's an ongoing project we're going to have every year as issues emerge. So you're comfortable saying like, this is actually what's going on. These are the facts. And then we have social media. So we're on Twitter through the legislative session, just giving updates like the ones that I mentioned from Ann. And then we do have a Facebook page that's closed for current alumni and fellows. And then we have a Care Fellowship page that's open for anyone who's interested in wanting to talk about this or meeting each other or being updated. So you have access to some form of community, whether you're in the fellowship or not. So we've been really trying hard to be present and get out there. And it's been a really exciting journey watching Care Fellowship grow. Does anybody have any questions about Minnesota's early childhood advocacy or the things we're working on right now? All right. Well, this is my last slide that I will leave you with. And this is one of my favorite questions or statements that I frequently hear is, what if I am not an advocate? I don't know how to do this, or I don't know how, I just don't know if this is right for me. And I like to think about activism is something that you can learn, and all of us have the skills to be able to do so. It's just about walking through a process of figuring out how to do it best for yourself. And so I picked a lot of photos of that showed that advocacy looks different. And that was a really big conversation that happened this year in Care Fellowship of like, how do I do something different than writing an email to a legislator? Or how do I do something different than testifying at the Capitol? How do I do something different that meets my needs and somebody else's? And that's really what I think the heart of Care Fellowship is. It's stepping into whatever version of advocacy is right for you, and then really stepping into it and using that power for change. And so I just encourage you that if you are ready to learn how to use those skills, Care Fellowship is the perfect place to start. And you're among really, really good, kind people who are going to help you get to the end goal. So that's everything that I have for you. Does anybody else have any questions?
I just wanted to add to, like, as a fellow, the information that you gather in this whole experience, it can help you in every area of your life. So even if you're like not ready to talk to legislators, that's not really what this is about. It's just about learning your voice, learning about what's important to you, learning about your confidence, learning about your field too, how to be with people, how to communicate. But really, a lot of the skills are transferable to everything. I mean, even like how to get your home loan, or so that's something to consider too. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, thank you, Vicki.
Awesome. Are there any other questions for Nikki or Vicki? This has just been wonderful. Nikki, I want to thank you for sharing your journey and what led you to end up here taking on the Care Fellowship. In general, it sounds like, you know, a great way to network and learn from the experiences of other people in our field. And it sounds like coming out of the Care Fellowship, you feel empowered not only to make changes for our field, but even for other issues that you feel are important and relevant to your life as well. So, and Vicki, thank you for joining us today. Loved hearing about your policy project and how your understanding of advocacy has changed over time. So I think if nobody else has any questions or comments, maybe a final send-off word is just that we hope that you see yourselves as advocates and feel encouraged to apply in June. I think I'm going to apply.
Yes, I'm going to memorize all of your names so I see them on applications in a month from now, 2 months from now.
And, you know, maybe what I could do is I could set myself a little calendar reminder for June 14th, right, Nikki? For June 14th, I could follow up with this group and remind them that the application has opened and give them the link. Awesome. Well, I'll send out a recap email next week, which will have the PowerPoint slides and contact info for both Nikki and Vicki, so you can be in touch with those ladies if you have other questions. Otherwise, I just hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day and hopefully see you next month for TEL Talks next month. All right. Thank you.